Welcome back to Midwest eSports Formula One. Tonight we're covering Division 2 and we're taking place in Singapore at Marina Bay. An exciting track and an exciting division to cover. This is our first time going over Division 2 and there's been a lot of action in the leaderboard, so I'm really excited to see how this race ends today.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second. Hello to all of the new viewers in Division 2. I am Nick. That's Mitch. That's Mitch. And yeah, we've been covering some D1 action for the past few weeks, but this is our first stint in D2. So very excited. Like Mitch said, there's a lot of action in the standings. We have a really cool graphic that we're going to get to in just a second. But after a Google search, probably 15 minutes ago, Mitch, do you know the historic implications of the Singapore circuit, the Marina Bay circuit that was founded and placed in the F1 season in 2008?
I don't, but I know you're going to tell me, so please enlighten me.
I sure am. Again, I learned this like 15 minutes ago. It was the first circuit in F1 history to be a nighttime race, 100% lit by artificial lighting. So take that for what it is. We have a night race this week. It's going to be very interesting to see how the tire degradation and the tire wear plays an effect when you don't have the sun of Saudi Arabia, the desert sun, baking this asphalt and cooking those tires even more than the cars are already as they barrel through these corners at almost 200 miles an hour. That colder asphalt will play into the later stages of this race. We have a lot of action to get to, but let's take a look at the Constructors Championships for Division 2. There was so much movement from the start of this season until now. It was actually a little shocking.
Yeah, this is always exciting to go back and watch how things change throughout the season. So McLaren came out strong in the beginning of the season, so did Haas. But as we move through week 2, 3, and 4, pay attention to how close the gaps are between the top 5, the top 6 teams. It just gets closer and closer. We see AlphaTauri, Alpine, Mercedes, everyone moving around. Look at how many teams are in 400, I believe, this week. Look at this, 553 to 504, separating the top 6 teams. And then we see the big moves with Alfa Romeo jumping up into this first place, AlphaTauri, then Mercedes takes second, McLaren's moving up into 4th, and it gets even more interesting as this goes on. Now with Division 2, we saw some racers move up into Division 1. I believe Race Day or Posh Josh from Haas moved up, so Haas started to lose some points in Division 2. But where we stand right now, as of last week, Alfa Romeo has moved back into first place with 1,069 points, and then Mercedes in second and AlphaTauri in third. But 4 teams are separated by just 69 points. Nice.
Yeah, that is absolutely phenomenal racing. It's phenomenal from a fan's perspective to see just how close and how competitive this division is. Like you said, there were a couple of drivers who started the season in Division 2 that then moved up to Division 1. One of them most prominently being Posh Josh, racing for Haas. Captured the first 3 races of the season in Great Britain, China, and Hungary. And then Fireballer, the other D1 sub now racing in the division above, was the week 5 winner in Monaco. So both of those drivers very experienced on street courses, as we saw last week in Abu Dhabi as well, with Posh Josh finishing 3rd, but after the steward reviews, finishing 5th. This is not D1 though, this is D2. So we do have some players to keep a lookout for as we get closer to qualifying and then tonight's race. Most notably, NFS Light Work, whose name is spelled like lit work, but I'm just going to go with Light Work here. Light Work has completed the last 3 races with a podium finish, wearing gold.
Yeah, and I'll have to look at how he finished in Spain, but a race before that, he was also in first place. So he's gone 4 for 5 in Austria, Spain, Netherlands, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. So we've got a mix of tracks there. And now we're coming to Singapore. We'll see if he can continue this hot streak because he is charging up the leaderboard right now. Currently, he's sitting in 8th place in the Drivers' Championship. But let's see where he was. 15th after week 8, 19th after week 7, 21st in week 6, and I believe That's it. So I think he joined somewhere in week 6, week 7, came up probably from one of the lower divisions, so carried those driver points. But when you're in Division 3, Division 4, you get less points than you would in Division 2, Division 1. So he started down on the bottom, and he has charged all the way up from 21st to 8th, going 4 for 5. It's insane.
Yeah, Aston Martin has been steadily moving up the constructor points as well. It will be quite a challenge with only 4 races remaining this year in the season. But Aston Martin could make up some ground and at least pass Alpine in the coming races, maybe start nipping at the heels of AlphaTauri or Mercedes if they can keep this pace. Now, looking at the schedule, looking back at the races that we have just concluded in the previous weeks, we had the Netherlands followed by Canada and Saudi Arabia. All 3 of those courses are very tight tracks, not a lot of overtaking opportunities. 2 of those 3 are honest street courses. And now we make it to Singapore. I wonder if that was meditated by the race officials and the commissioner to put these street courses one after another back to back to back to kind of keep that same vibe. I'm not sure if that plays to the hands of the drivers, or if it is, is it a challenge or a hindrance to do so many street tracks one after another, or would you rather have those spaced out? I'm not sure.
I guess that really depends on your style and how confident you are in these tracks. I know they follow the real life as close as possible. So we have the Singapore Grand Prix this weekend, and then 2 weekends ago, man, time flies already. But
right.
Yeah, they'll follow the F1 in real life, and then in the off weeks, they'll sprinkle in the tracks that aren't being used or some of the favorite ones. Singapore, too, this year has a change to the layout, which we'll see when we have kind of the map overview. But they took out the section that goes underneath the bleachers right before the finish line, which was like a hard right, a hard left, a hard left. Very technical, very kind of hard on the drivers, and it reduced a lot of the speed on this track. So that change is going to be interesting, and it just made the cut in Formula 123.
We also have a few substitutions for today's race. Again, we are running, I believe, 4 divisions currently for MidWest eSports Formula 1 in Season 11. Season 10? Season 11. It's one of those 2. I believe this might be Season 10. Of the MidWest series. But we have some racer substitutions. Gamboa will be out for McLaren tonight and will be subbed by MMR Tano. And the Haas team will be substituting Ulek Holoven for P. Gonzalez. So 2 newer names to keep an eye out for. All of them are new for us, but that is what qualifying is for. We love showing qualifying so everyone can get kind of an idea of, who the front runners are going to be, what the track looks like, so we're all not just throwing ourselves in once lights are out. So they're having some lobby issues right now, I believe, with invites and getting everybody on there to start qualifying. But once the green flag is waved for qualifying, we will definitely throw over to the action.
Well, it does seem like Light Work, who we were talking about, who's been on a tear recently, was trying to get his PlayStation up and ready, and people don't want to invite him because he is so good and think that he should be already up in Division 1. Now, I think the part of the issue with that is when you look at the drivers you have for Aston Martin in Division 1, you have Scarenzi, who's leading the Drivers' Championship in D1, and then we have NLR Mackie as well. So we have 2 very good, very qualified drivers for Aston Martin in D1. So at least in D1 and D2, they seem to be pretty stacked.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not saying that we won't see light work through the rest of this season. This is just a fun league. We're not racing for money. We're not actually sanctioned by these race teams. So sometimes folks go to the beach. Sometimes they have a family event, or they're working an overtime shift at night and they can't make the race. So there's a very real possibility that Aston Martin may see light work make his way up to D1 as we close out this season. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next season as well. Are both of those drivers going to stay, or will light work get the nod? But it's going to be a treat nonetheless today as we finally get to see the maestro at work, coming in late to Div 2 this year and just putting on an absolute clinic on one of the more technical tracks that we have on the schedule.
This one, I don't remember I don't know if I've raced Singapore too much, to be honest. I mean, we just got into a lot of the F1 games last year playing them, And this wasn't one of the popular tracks, so we typically stayed away from it. It'll be interesting to see how professionals handle the course because I know for sure that we cannot. And qualifying is always a fun time to watch too, see what people's strategies are, and that is just kicking off. So we're going to see who heads out onto the track first, who's going to throw down those times, or if people are just going to hang out in the pits for a little bit and then throw down very hard in the end.
Before we get started, want to shout out our Division 2 stewards. Thank you so much to WS Bacon, MMR Peter DRH, and WS Lancy, who was the racer in Division 1 who was at the beach that I mentioned earlier in today's broadcast. I believe 2 weeks ago, Lancy was watching from the beach. So appreciate those stewards who continue the work after the race concludes. Their weekends are filled with reviews of video and hearing everyone complaining about why they deserve to be higher up in the positions. But yeah, I don't recall ever running Singapore myself. I watched a quick run through today before we started the stream, and after turn 3, heading down the main straight, going through a double chicane, which ends in turn 3 as just a hairpin left. I looked at it and, okay, all right, we can run this, we can run in, never mind. When you see a professional racer like Charles Leclerc spin out and wobble through turn 3 of his qualifying pole-setting lap in Singapore, and he still was the fastest on the track, that is saying something. This one requires, we say it every week, but this track requires so much focus, so much perfection, and just concentration, especially during, like we're seeing right here as we're on board with no demo, these really tight sections, like claustrophobic sections through underpasses and, just impossible passing sections.
Yeah, and we just got an update from the Weather Center, Knuckles 89, that we are going to have a dry qualification, but a wet race that may dry before the end, but not a guarantee. It's not a 50-50 race. It may dry up or it may not.
Do we have a climate sponsor for today's broadcast? Because, yeah, it doesn't typically rain in Singapore. So very confused as to why this is going to be a wet race here. But that makes it all the more challenging. These cars are not going to be able to outright blast through the track. They're going to have to take the slickness of the asphalt into consideration. Of course, they're going to be riding their intermediates or their wet tires, so they will not be on the slicks that we're seeing right now. But, it just makes racing that much harder. These guys are already running next to no assists in the game, and now you're adding wet. It's just, this might be a hot mess.
I don't know if it ties in with you mentioning that Singapore was historic because it's the first course to have artificial light. Maybe it's the first course to have artificial rain. Maybe they have sprinklers hidden on the track just to get that track a little bit more slippy and make the racing action a little more exciting.
Yeah, they want the spectacle, huh? I love these sections. I love that tight section we just passed through Sector 2. I really hope we see a head-to-head, wheel-to-wheel push through that section. But again, just everyone's going to be puckering a little bit as they head into every single one of these 23 turns here today.
This seems like a more interesting street track too, where it's hard to tell where the track ends compared to a lot of other street circuits where you have big built up curbs or you have grass. This one has a lot of markings and where you can see alternate turns on the road. I know if I was driving it, I would get lost. And we have the first lap thrown down by Nomad's demo with a 1 minute 30 second, but we have plenty of racers out there who are going to look to beat that time.
Yes, this is a wonderful time to mention the qualifying structure here in Midwest eSports. Traditionally, in the real-life F1 circuit, you will run 3 qualifying sectors. Each sector, each qualifying session, there we go, eliminates drivers from the bottom, and qualifying 3, we are left with the top 10 drivers competing for their position on the grid. However, for the sake of time and just everyone's sanity, we are only running a short qualifying, which is a full 15-minute qualifying session where the drivers are able to go out, take their sighting laps, and then perform, their fastest pace setting laps to try and compete for that top spot. So we're not going to see anyone being, knocked out of the bracket here after qualifying. What is set at the end of Q1 will be the race order. But yeah, we will see the drivers start to pick up pace here towards the end of qualifying. These first couple of laps are just to get the tires warmed up. And it looks like Jordan Hum already heading in with a tire puncture on the front right. The Haas just unable to get it done there on their sighting lap.
I was going to say, that tire didn't just heat up. I think it went a little bit overcooked. So we saw him limping through one of the corners and was able to go back into the box. Hopefully he's able to get out and hit more qualifying times. We have seen drivers in the past DQ out of qualifying from an accident and not be able to set or improve on one of their times. Pingalo, however, one of your favorite names in the lobby, jumps up into 4th place.
How do you not love that name, Pingalo? It just flows right off the tongue. It feels like my mouth is on a trampoline. Wanted to shout out our viewers in chat. Thank you so much for joining us for today's broadcast of Midwest Esports Formula One Division 2 on Nick and Mitch. Seeing some new names over there. Cheering for Travis Scott. Viva Mexico. Yeah, looks like we have some Travis Scott fanboys in the chat. Let us know if there are any other drivers that anyone is looking out for today. Of course, all eyes are set on Aston Martin's light work, currently on their outlap in 11th place. We should see some decent pace from the Green Giant there later in today's session.
And how about that for you? Sorry, Joshua. Travis Scott setting the 2nd fastest time right now with a 1:37.67. Frenchie jumping into 9th place. Looks like Kaki Thomas just starting his lap. And now we just got a fastest lap from Cynical as well, a 1:04.
Wow. Wait. What? No chance. A 1:04? Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I can't read. I just learned my numbers like 3 or 4 days ago, so this is a big step up for me. We're on board with Kake Thomas right now in that beautiful looking McLaren. If you spotted my hat earlier, I may have a little bias towards the papayas. You just can't beat this livery, especially that new stealth mode that they're coming out with in the upcoming race this weekend.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit awkward now. I'm wearing my Aston Martin hat. Just like this season, I chose to vote for Aston Martin and follow them because I love the car. And then they did very well at the beginning of the season. And I know a couple people were upset that I picked them and they started doing well. And now that I'm wearing an Aston Martin hat, light work is in the lobby. I've been wearing it, and Scarenzi's been doing great as well when we watch him.
Hey, we'll see. Maybe, commentators curse. Maybe the hats offset some of that. I just learned something in the chat. Thank you so much to one of our stewards, Bacon, giving us some insight on what MMR stands for. We've been seeing it through Division 1 and now Division 2. That MMR tag at the head of the username stands for Monkey Mafia Racing. So a subsect of Midwest Esports Racing. I wonder if they're all on an endurance team or something like that. But interesting info nonetheless. Thank you so much, Bacon.
I think it grows even farther than that. I know they're in my endurance racing league. I think this is just a giant racing league in general. Currently on board with light work in the Aston Martin, who's heading in the last sector of the track to set down his first time so far today. Looks like we've got a Mercedes just in front of him, but that should be clear enough for him to set a time. He's going to be cutting it close.
Yeah, it's a bit behind on pace.
Ooh,
wow.
Never mind.
What was I saying? Remember how I said I was just learning numbers like 4 days ago? That is a 1:29.360. Did I get that one right?
You did. And in the meantime, when we were watching him, the other Aston Slayer Eyes set down a 1:36.80 for 4th place.
Dang. Now we're seeing in the chat, hey, what's up, Gnarly Duck? Haven't seen your name in a while. Now we're seeing Josh saying MMR stands for Mickey Mouse Racing. So yeah, please chat. Let us know what MMR really stands for throughout today's race.
Guess it depends what side of the fence you're on, whether or not you are going to be cheering for them or not. But there are a lot in the lobby. It's going to make us hard to try and read names because you'll have to skip past those first 4 characters. Jordy in the Haas setting his first lap and getting a 1:31, so he will be in 10th right now. We're just waiting on a final qualification lap from Josh, Senior 5 in the Mercedes. And then everyone will have at least one chance. There's 8 minutes and a bit left in qualifying, so they can do another lap or two. Then they'll go into the box, put on fresh tires, and try and hammer out one more.
Yeah, still plenty of time as we see these cautions coming through. Nothing really to be concerned about as the drivers are setting their pace. Other drivers are dipping off the track or just giving them the right of way to complete their laps. It's a really nice, courteous, sportsmanship thing to be doing here. But the game doesn't understand that, so we get all of these caution flags thrown. On board with Senior right now. Looking good here. Looking pretty clean through Sector 1.
Yeah, he moved up into 13th with his qualification lap. And there are quite a few drivers out there still looking to improve their time. Knuckles, we'll see if he can take the shot because Jordan seemed to be just below his best time so far.
Chat, just a, peek behind the curtain here. Let us know if the track noise is loud enough for you. As we've watched through. Whoa, we have a spin from the Ferrari. Knuckles spinning out and tipping that front left wing into the wall. Looks like everything may be okay. He's assessing here on the straight, but that was a huge oversteer by the Ferrari.
Man, I don't know, but that livery, I don't trust it too much in F123. Last week in Division 1, both Ferraris took each other out in the final laps of the race in this livery. Thankfully, Knuckles is able to keep this one under control and stay out there. Going into the pits, though, to fix any damage, put on some fresh tires, and wait for that final chance at setting a fast time.
Yeah, very smart. Yeah, that does not spell the end of his day. Again, if you wreck in qualifying, you just end. I believe you just end in that position. You don't get to come back and set another lap, but that does not mean that you will be DQ'd from the race just from your chance to set a faster quality time.
Yes, and right now we're on with Demo in the AlphaTauri. He is in third place right now. He was the person to set the original best qualifying time with that 6:07, and he is looking to improve, getting Aston pulling over for him, leaving plenty of room.
We have a call from Mickey Mouse Racing from their paddock, Cake Thomas in the McLaren, saying, "I'm a professional at missing apexes." So beating himself up a bit on the team radio there. It's all well and good. That is what quali is for. It's to kind of rein these cars in, get a feel for the track. It's not like this is one of the most difficult courses on the entire schedule or anything. I mean, just every time you look at these cars, there's barely a straight for them to pick up speed. I believe their full throttle is set to about 50%. So these cars are not going to reach their max speed here. It's all about the corners. It's all about getting the timing. And like Cake said, nailing these apexes, making sure that you're hitting those corners at the right angle, the right speed at the right time. If you don't get that, you're going to miss these combo moves through these chicanes. And it's going to be a bad time for everyone.
Yes, I mean, just saw that Demo was able to improve his time, but not enough to move up into third. So now we're on with Travis Scott, who is currently just behind his best lap. But he has a good bit of time left in this final sector to try and improve. Did take a curb a little bit too hard and spun, but we'll see if he can improve going into Sector 3. Looks like that line's coming up at the end of the straight. And as we watch these onboards too, you really do not see almost anywhere on this track. I don't know if they get up into 8th gear.
No, not at all. This is going to be a slow, meticulous race today. Let us know in chat who you are rooting for today's race. One, who you're rooting for, and two, who you think is going to win, because those two may not be the same thing. Yeah, Cynical apologized watching from the pits, from his cockpit, saying it's Monkey Mafia, not Mickey Mouse. Yeah, I do know. I'm sorry. I will not make that joke again. I am afraid. I'm genuinely afraid of the Monkey Mafia at this point.
Yeah, we don't want to get on their bad side. We might want to join them at some point. I don't think we're good enough racers to be a part of any sort of group except our own, who do some commentary.
Lightworks still sitting atop the grid here as we count down the time. Only 3 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in Q1, and only Lightwork now sitting at a 1:29.360. Cynical nipping at the heels with a 1:30.104. Not going to be enough to take first place, but who knows, as these cars are back out on track with fresh softs, fresh layouts. We'll see who can put the jets on and set the pace.
Yes. Slayer had slowed down there, so he will not improve his time. We have Knuckles back out in the Ferrari, fixing any issues he had on the car to improve his time. And we heard from executive producer Bob Comito, Coach 34, maybe to turn the voices down one tick. So I did. We'll see if that is better. But
Yeah,
we do appreciate the input.
I was going to say, that is why he's an executive producer watching from Charlotte, North Carolina. Next door neighbors to none other than Gunter Steiner. I'm just kidding. He lives like 40 minutes away, but still, I can dream.
You still could be next door neighbors, even if you are 40 miles away. I mean,
that's very true. Hey, Gunter said in an interview last week that he enjoys going to Walmart and doing the simpler things. And I believe their Walmart overlaps. So Coach Bob Comito may be going to Walmart looking for dog food someday, and he passes Gunter, who's looking for like light bulbs or something. Who knows? We might get a fun Snapchat in the coming weeks. We are on board with Knuckles with a fully repaired Ferrari as we head into Sector 3. The pace is looking good.
Yeah, he was getting close there, and just only up in the 7th.
Bit too slow. Yeah, that's not going to pay the bills for today's start. Cake. Well, we're heading down to Pingalo, heading down to Jordy Hum. That front right has been fixed, tires inflated, and we are off track.
I am just trying to keep you on your toes. I'm looking for drivers who have the faster times whenever we join them, because it does show currently how they are comparing. It looks like Josh Senior 5 is just improving on his time, but doing a little Fernando Alonso out there on the qualifying, I don't think will help for that. And we just have a DQ from Pingalo in the Williams, so he will be unable to improve. He is currently at 11th.
No, Pingalo. I love that name. I'm going to say it every time I get the honor of saying Pingalo. That name kicks butt. Yeah, I wonder, was Josh just getting prepped there for another push? Realized he wasn't going to improve on his time, so, better to warm the tires up and push harder in a second lap.
He could have been, yeah. We are getting down to those final laps. Looks like Slayer Eyes, is he going into the pits? I don't know if he'll have enough time to get out and get another lap. We do have Demo slightly improving after Sector 2.
But how impressive is it to see Lightworks setting that fastest pace about midway, probably the first half? A little bit of oversteer there by Demo as he heads into the Sector 2 straight, still on pace. But yeah, just watching Lightworks set that fastest lap midway through Q1 and only, and nobody has been able to crack the 129, let alone get it all the way down to 360.
It's tough. I mean, we just saw MMR Cynical say in the chat, no way I'm catching that. Just not a chance. I mean, like 7 to 8 tenths of a second behind the leader.
It's insanity.
Yeah, it's just something he's right. I mean, you could catch up to it, but it's going to be very difficult. Travis Scott taking his best attempt, though, just super, very, very close to his best time so far. Looks like the back just got a little bit away from him.
Yeah, I mean, look how close these drivers have to stay to these walls. There's not much room for error. Sometimes you like to take a wider turn. Sometimes you like to take a shorter turn or tighter turn. You really can't here. You kind of have to just grip it and rip it on the apex the best you can, as we see those tires just holding on to the white line for Travis.
He is clinging to it. Want to see if Lightwork has improved on his time at all. Looks like he is, just barely. I mean, there's not much room for him to improve, but so is MMR Cynical.
We might have a race for first here as Cynical goes not quite over wide.
Let's see. They're all coming to a stop now. So that looks like Cynical is going to be the only one that will actually put in a time to challenge.
He's on pace. This is looking good as he turns onto the final straight. Is he able? No, just 0.3 of a second off from the pace leader, Lightwork.
I mean, look at that. He improved his best time by half a second on the final lap of qualifying and still is almost half a second away from Lightwork.
This is going to be a very interesting start to the race as Lightwork and Cynical will start 1 and 2 as we head into the finals. Who are we waiting for? We still have a couple. We should be wrapping up here. We have a minute left to get all of the cars back in the paddock.
There is the official signal for you, the end of qualifying. It is going to be raining in Singapore when we come back, so that is going to have an effect on this race. Drivers may not handle the wet rain too well, and there's a lot of tight corners in this one, so if you spin, you're putting a wheel into the wall, and that is going to say game over for you.
Well, we'll see as Lightwork starts yet another race from pole position, looking for his fourth first place finish in a row from Marina Bay in Singapore. It's Nick and Mitch. We'll be right back with MidWest eSports Division 2 Formula One racing. Marina Bay, making its debut in 2008, this shifty ride through the streets of Singapore is often a dividing line between drivers. But one thing's for certain, it's always a show. Drivers have reported that this 3-mile track requires almost twice the amount of work as a single lap on the streets of Monaco. And the 23 turns of this waterside street circuit will definitely wring every last drop of focus out of today's lineup. And speaking of, all eyes are certainly on our pole sitter Lightwork this evening as he looks to secure his fourth first place finish in a row. Aston Martin and team definitely have their work cut out for them though, as both Alphas and Mercedes continue to dominate the points. Who will lift the trophy tonight? It's anyone's shot at the top, and within hours' time, all will be answered. From Singapore, this is MidWest eSports Formula One Division 2 on Nick and Mitch.
And while we were going over the track interview and hyping everyone up, someone in the lobby readied up, so we are already out, but we are doing a formation lap that has been applied to all divisions now in MidWest eSports Formula One. So drivers are out there getting their tires a little bit warmed up, and then they are going to be coming back into their starting positions. And we just saw the forecast, the prediction from Amazon. It is going to be soaking wet the entire race. No intermediate tires permitted from Amazon. We'll see if anyone's brave enough. We are going full wet in Singapore.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers navigate the the tire requirements and restrictions here in today's race. They could try to push for a 1-stop, but if things get dicey, we may be looking at a 2-stop. Again, all on wets. This is going to be slow. This is going to be grippy, meticulous. Concentration has to be at a max as you see buckets pouring on this street circuit.
And I just saw that Knuckles said it is lonely on the grid by himself.
Oh no!
He is
a victim of the formation lap, very similar to Mitch and I.
Yes, you never know what's going to happen in the formation lap. If you don't start, you are going to sit there while the rest of the drivers creep up behind you. Lightwork's going to get the final prep into his warm-up, and then we can see him pull into the spot. He's going to go nice and wide on the final part of the track. There's Knuckles sitting in the Ferrari, just getting dumped on.
You can see just how difficult this is going to be for the drivers as we saw Lightwork tanking it around the final corner there. But you can see the formation lap pays off if you're able to complete it all without making contact or messing it up, Knuckles. You are able to kind of, hairpin, very small adjustments on your starting grid position to maybe get a leg up as you head into turn 1. I believe turn 1 is a left, and we have our pole sitter Lightwork on the right, so he will be taking the outside of turn 1. But again, that is a double chicane, and turn 3 is a very tough hairpin. So it's anyone's guess as to how this race will begin, but it will be interesting nonetheless. We are ready. The cars are on the grid. We are waiting for the lights here in Singapore. Division 2 Midwest Esports Formula 1 Racing. The lights are out and we are off. Week 11 of the season is underway with Lightwork taking it down the first stretch, able to get in front of Cynical, setting pace here in the very tricky conditions. We have a McLaren of Tano squirreling a bit through that first section there. But as these cars are spreading pace, this is going to be such a difficult race.
Ooh, and it looks like we already have our first major incident. Kaki Thomas is out and several penalties have been applied for collisions. You can see the McLaren Kaki Thomas just absolutely crushed against the wall. Not seeing any onboard damage from Knuckles and MMR, but there was penalties handed out. I believe we saw some 5 seconds already. And we have the safety car just 3 turns into the start of this race.
What a brutal start to this race. It was so tight. It was so slow. I really didn't know how to make that call. But it was only a matter of time before we saw the caution safety car being deployed now for that incident off the start. I wish we had replay, but we will definitely be able to see that later as the drivers submit their views from today's race. But yeah, unfortunate for the Ferrari, the Alpine, and the McLaren, who I believe is out of today's race in lap 1.
Well, they were talking in the lobby about recreating the start of the 2017 Grand Prix, and it basically happened just the wrong corner. Kaki Thomas saying that he saw 4 cars spread across the circuit and clipped his left front, had nowhere to go on this tight street track with cars spun out in front of him.
You hate to see it, but I would be lying if I said I was surprised by any means. It's always upsetting to see something like this happen in the first lap of the race, races being tanked before they were even able to begin. But such is the league, such is racing. We push on.
Yes, and one of the things from the start, you can see some drivers made huge jumps. P. Gonzalez in the Haas jumped up 9 spots in just the first few turns before we got the safety car. And we also had, now they're moving around under safety car. It looks like a couple drivers in the pits, maybe fixing a little bit of damage or switching tires. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Gonzalez might have been in the sauce there during that collision, able to get past a couple of those cars under braking. But yeah, very smart of those drivers to take a pit now while safety car is deployed. Again, the race really hasn't started, so starting fresh as we await green flag is always going to be better than not.
Yes, and gives the drivers a little bit more chance to kind of cool down. We won't have as much bunched up in the corners. I won't say that it's not going to happen because it is very wet and a very tight track. But this should, set the pace just a little bit better for these drivers. And, we'll get a couple more laps before no DRS. Never mind. It's raining.
Yeah, it's going to be a slow one. We have word from the Alpine garage. The entire side pod and the entire front wing was ripped off of Sui's car down in 16th. Again, that incident with Kaki. I said I wasn't going to do this with the names, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, unfortunate for the Alpine. Looks like they were able to get all of that fixed, and they're back on the track for another shot.
Yeah, and the good news for him, he'll at least get to catch up a bit to the pack because the safety car is out there. We'll see if it's going to come in this lap or if we are going to go around one more time on the track with the Aston Martin safety car in front of the Aston Martin, reminding us of Division 1 last week where we had 2 safety cars, I believe, including one just in the final 4 laps of the race, which set a very intense finish.
Yes, yeah, it was a race to the finish in Division 1 Saudi Arabia last week. Maybe we will see a playback of that this week here in Singapore, as again, it is going to rain. It's predicted to rain for the entirety of today's race. We have 31 laps ahead of us, well, 29 now.
28 now.
28 now. The whole math thing, man, it just doesn't work. I'm telling you. They're changing stuff up on me.
I know the numbers 1 through 18 are very hard and complicated.
Thank you.
We'll get through it together. Don't worry.
One way or another, just like today's race, we're ticking laps away under safety car. This is no way to complete our 31 laps here today, but we are getting it done as a group. Seeing everyone there on the wet tires. Again, the rain is way too heavy to even try the intermediates. Maybe it will lighten up, and it will be interesting to see later in the race, once these cars, if they ever get space between them, will someone try to slip on one of those inters just to try and be a little more slick around these corners, or is it just an absolute death sentence to do anything less than the most rigorous tire that we have on this schedule?
We also have Knuckles DNFing from the session. The only Ferrari is now out of the race as well. Didn't see what happened with him. I don't know if it was a disconnect or an accident during the safety car lap out there. Will be hard for drivers to catch up too, because there won't be any DRS. So Cynical isn't going to have any easy way to catch up to light work if he starts pulling the gap away.
We're going to wait to hear from the Ferrari garage, but that is unfortunate. We saw Knuckles spin out during qualifying, was able to recover the car, but then was unable to complete the formation lap. So it's been a night for Knuckles. We'll just leave it at that.
It can be rough in the rain in a street track like this one. Safety car is coming in this lap, so we will be underway in just a moment. Almost every driver has caught up. Let's look at the leader. Just 13 seconds separating first from 15th.
All the safety cars in. We see some of the front runners here, especially the Aston Martin and McLaren.
Ooh, getting a little close to the Williams. I mean, Williams does have to is the driver that has to stay out of the contact in that case, but Lightwork trying to touch both walls on the track before he can take off. Looks like a hockey goalie rubbing all of the posts before he steps into the crease.
Gotta pay your respects. We are under green once again. Let's try another restart, shall we? Lightwork taking the lead in lap 4 of the Singapore Grand Prix Division 2 racing here in Midwest eSports. Look at that. Saul taking the fastest lap with a 2:08. Just 30 seconds slower than our qualifying times.
Yes, we have done all of the laps under safety cars, so he's able to get the fastest lap, and I don't think he's going to hold on to that one, but hey, you never know. It could be safety cars all night long.
Oh, please don't speak it into its existence. We have our fan favorite Travis Scott sitting in Travis Scott's sitting in 4th place. I'm going to be doing that all night long. And Tano, the replacement for Team McLaren, sitting calmly and comfortably in 3rd as of right now.
Yes, everyone's doing well, keeping the cars spaced out. Looks like Gonzalez down in the Haas is very much closing in. Jumped over him on the Mercedes of MMR Frenchie. Be difficult to make a pass out here in the weather. We did also hear from Knuckles that he had full orange underbody and rear wing damage after getting punted in lap 1. Car was undrivable, and that was the only option. You can't really fix all of that damage in the pits in a race, so sounds like he just had to go for it. And speaking of going for it, P. Gonzalez hammers on the gas, spins those tires, and just jumps in front of Frenchie.
Yes, our second sub-driver of the night. Little squirrely there, exiting, bouncing off the walls like a pinball in the arcade, but Gonzalez may have it under control as he has a fairly decent cushion heading in here into Sector 2.
It will remain to be seen if he can keep that car in front after striking the wall. Looks like everything is good. We got a new fastest lap from none other than Lightwork in the Aston Martin with a 150.
We may have some action in 9th place. Josh Senior looking like he was getting close to MMR Hightower, who we have seen before in Division 1, who put on quite a show in the past few weeks. I believe it was Canada. Hightower was sitting pretty for some of that race. Very competitive driver for the Red Bull.
And we do have all of these drivers here in 7th, 8th, ninth, 10th, very close together. Josh Senior going to look
Seventh place,
for that slipstream.
Demo's taking a shot in 7th on MMR Adaltonian, unable to make that cross.
Yeah, so you can just see it's hard. You're not going to get full acceleration on the car, especially in the rain. So you're not going to get a massive benefit off of the slipstream. You really see the benefit of the slipstream once your cars are reached almost max acceleration, and then you can just squeak out a little bit more with a slip. But Josh Senior trying to get close, get inside, but some great defending from Hightower heading into these chicanes.
Yeah, it is so incredibly difficult with how short these straights are, and without DRS, since we are in the rain, it's going to be so difficult to get by these cars. We're seeing these times bounce from 1/10 of a second back to 3, 4, 5/10 of a second. Typically, whenever you see that 1/10 increment, that means that car is taking that position, just like Slayer Eyes did over Josh Senior for 9th right there in the Aston Martin. Both Aston Martins, again, fighting for the constructor points that they so desperately need to be in contention for the finale of this season, currently sitting in 5th for the constructors. It's not going to be enough for that hardware at the end of the year.
It's been a bit tumultuous for them this season, moving up and down, but with Lightwork joining the team, they've started to make progress, but we only have 5 races left in the season, including today, so they really need to get all the points that they can to catch up and take the lead.
Slayer Eyes putting some pressure there on Hightower. You saw him getting, again, within 1/10. Here we go again, creeping up in the straighter parts of this track. We may see an Aston Martin climbing the ranks here in the middle of the pack without DRS, something unprecedented. Pingalo with a penalty may be able to overtake Josh Senior for 10th. Josh seems to be bleeding some pace somewhat as he is losing seconds on Slayer Eyes as well.
And I believe we now have a Haas out on the track with no front wing, which is going to bring out another safety car. I saw the caution flags thrown up. That's got to be as hard of a car to drive as possible in the wets in Singapore with no front wing. I'm not just talking like a bent one. Look at that. It's just got a needle point on the front of that car. It's not good for anything except ramming into another opponent.
I am no mechanic, but I can tell you without a doubt that's not great. It's not great. You don't want that to happen. Gonzalez, one of our subs for today's race, picking up the torch for Division 2 Haas. There we go, a little overtake under yellow for the wingless Haas. Thankfully, though, that is an injury that is able to be remedied once he makes it into pit lane. We'll see what the president is there. Like, he has to pit, right? There's no question about that.
I mean, you don't have to, but yes, you have to fix this. I don't know if they would let you stay out, honestly. Like, would they let you drive? I mean, we saw him already overshoot one of the corners. But I mean, from the driver's point of view, you can't see the flare-ups at the ends of the wings, but yeah, I don't hard to tell if you're missing something there. So you see this view, and then you have both just completely shattered off. Looks like some inside the tire damage too.
Yeah, and here we go. Both of the Haas's running into issues for today's race. We had Jorge Hum blowing a tire in qualifying, and now Gonzalez heading in for a new front wing, getting a little nose job here. We are only on lap 7 in Singapore under our second caution of the race.
Let's watch what the team does. They are getting ready. Take off what's remaining of the front wing. Pop a new one on.
And Shazam. Easy as that. 2 Allen keys, and we are ready for some racing.
Is it really just Allen keys, or is there a little bit more to it?
It's probably a little more than that. It's probably like those IKEA locking anchor things where you do like the half turn with the Allen key, but it cements up the. I don't know.
I know. I like to think that just working with your grandpa, where he's like, just get me a 5mm and we'll just crank this thing on.
Give me a shim and some duct tape. We'll make it work.
Yep, just a pair of handheld pliers and some tape.
We are on board with our race leader, who has held pole position here through 7 in Singapore, has not been challenged yet for his spot, and may not see a challenge for this entire race, not discounting Cynical's racing abilities, just taking into account the treacherous conditions that we have out on track right now. Even the safety car is having some issues here in the corners with a bit of understeer.
It's going to be tricky, and I think this is one of the few ways that cars will be able to keep up with light work throughout the entire race. Safety car just ruining any interval that he built up. It looks like he was getting close to 3 seconds up on Cynical. Now he's down to half second once again, and we're about a quarter of the way through the race.
Yeah, we do want to keep an eye on the other Aston Martin, currently in 8th place, MMR Slayer Eyes, who again was able to overtake 3 or 4 cars there in between the 2 safety cars that were deployed. These Aston Martins definitely have pace in the back half of this season, so do not discount that 8th place sitter right now. He may very well be pushing for a podium spot if we are able to race more than 4 laps at a time.
And looking at the teams that are on the top of the Constructors' Cup right now, Alfa Romeo in first with 1,069. Currently only one driver in the race, Anbu Mason in 12th place. Mercedes is in second, but they have MMR Frenchie in 11th and Josh Sr. in 15th. AlphaTauri, gotta find their logo. We have one driver in 13th. Alpine is in 4th place, and we have a driver in 10th. And then Aston Martin in 5th with a driver in 1st and a driver in 8th. McLaren in 6th with a driver in 3rd and then a driver that has DNF. And Red Bull in 7, who have 4th and 7th place. So this could cause some decent shakeups in the leaderboard.
Without a doubt. Yeah, this is one of those races where it is a gamble, and those teams that are pacing lower in the standings right now can really make up some points, albeit it may be under a technical placement, but nonetheless, those points still work the same when it comes to the standings at the end of the year.
Yes, and the point structure in Division 2, first place gets 85, second gets 80, and then 77, 75. I'm not going to run through the rest of the numbers. First place does get a nice 5-point advantage, but currently Aston Martin is sitting almost 100 points behind Alfa Romeo in the lead. So that one will be tough for them to climb, but with 2 drivers, they will gain probably 50 or 60 points today if they just finished how they do right now.
Yeah, 2 drivers with pace that we are seeing right here. Let's take a look at the overtakes from their starting positions to where they are now. MMR Hightower, currently in 7th, is able to climb 7 positions. You're reading that right, 7 positions in the first 8 laps of the race. We have Lightwork is choosing to dip into the pits now. I wonder if this is work on the car or if it is just strictly tires. We can take a look at Lightwork in the pits in 9th and 10th place. Oh, he is switching to inters.
Interesting.
How? Interesting.
That didn't even start as a pun. It just finished as a pun.
This could be fun as our pole sitter now in 12th place, Lightwork, switching to the inters, the less intense of the 2 gripped tires.
How about Demo, too, going under the hard tires? That's a gamble.
That is a gamble. We may want to keep an eye on Demo as we go under green again soon. I'm not sure. That might have been a slip. Slip telling the pit crew, hey, I went inters. Oh, accidentally, I'm putting on slicks. This is by no means conditions for slicks just yet. But hey, maybe Demo knows something that we don't. Maybe he was able to find some grip out there on the track that other people just aren't seeing yet. Looks like Lightwork is poised to, I don't know. Do you retain and wait for something, or is he going to try and push his way through this grid again? At the very least, try and set the fastest lap higher and higher as we go.
He can definitely do that. Clawing through the pack's going to be tricky. I would almost imagine he's going to just, if he has an opportunity, you're going to take it. Otherwise, I think this could be a one-stop race. Maybe in 5 laps, most drivers will be pitting to put on a new set of tires. And in that, he will have a gap in front of him because every driver in front of him, except for Demo and Gonzalez, have some old tires. So then he will have a clear shot to really just jump back up into first or overtake them once they leave pit lane again.
Well, after 2 cautions and 2 slowdowns, it's anyone's guess as to when those tires will be swapped, but I can tell you one thing for sure, that safety car has gone back into the paddock, and we are going to be under green momentarily with a new race leader as we head into lap 9. MMR Cynical's Williams will sit atop this grid, followed by McLaren's Tano, the replacement driver for Division 2 tonight, and the Haas of Jordan Hum.
And we are now going to see how these intermediate tires hold up against the wets. We have light work, a Daltonian, Travis Scott, I think Josh Senior, and maybe Hightower's in the pit now. But at least 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th all have these intermediate tires on. We already have a caution flag up once again in Sector 1, and it looks like
appears to be Hightower's Red Bull. Oh, is currently in the pits. Never mind.
I believe it is
Tano.
MMR Tano.
Oh, Tano was sitting third at that restart, is now out of the race. Yeah, and there we go, under another safety car. Unfortunate we didn't get a look at what happened there. We'll see if we can get the crew radio to feed us that information. But we did see light work take 2 positions. There was definitely pace there on the inters as he was heading into those first couple of turns.
He was definitely gaining time, and now's the question, are the rest of the drivers going to pit, the ones in first through 9th? Are they going to stop and put on intermediate tires? That's going to give light work and the 3 behind him an easy jump back up into first place. It comes down to strategy again, right? If you're cynical, you're holding on to first place. Do you pit? Do you give up the position now? Or do you stay out and try and hold them off once the race restarts? Because people have been having a lot of difficulties on this track.
Yeah, as we see the AlphaTauri spinning out there under safety. Hey, these drivers can't say that they don't know the track.
I mean, you're getting a lot of slow feeler laps, I think is what you call them, learner laps, where you drive, you go half speed, and you just kind of try to hit those apexes as perfectly as you can.
From the McLaren wall, it was just simply too much gas, spun it out, a little bit of oversteer, and the exit of the corner. So yeah, something that you see that is very familiar with a wet race. These drivers really have to, you have to baby it through the corner. And once you feel like that car is straightened out enough is whenever you hit that gas. But the minute you hit that accelerator too early, and you're still turning, that car is just a spinning top, and there's no saving you. As we see with, again, third place sitter, MMR Tano, now out of the race. That is 3 drivers down and only 11 laps into this race. We are crawling to the finish line at this pace. Hopefully we'll be able to complete more than 2 here as we complete cleanup of that McLaren, with Jordan Hum now sitting in first place, followed by none other than Light Work, following the full sail pit stops from the grid.
Yeah, and that one's going to be tough for Jordan to hold. I mean, for now, he can stay in first place, but he's on 10-lap-old wet tires. That's not going to last too long against light work, at least. But we'll see how far he goes down the pack. He will have to pit, swap his tires at some point, but he might be able to hold out the rest of the race. Not sure if the inters will make it the whole way. These safety cars sure are helping with the longevity of these tires, though. You're not putting them under too much strain unless you step on the gas a bit too hard and spin out.
Yeah, this is definitely a balancing act here in Singapore, as that rainforest, that tropical climate, is rearing its ugly head. This is just not what you want to see as one of the final races of the season. This is the time that these drivers are trying to push as hard as they can to get as many points as possible. And you don't want to do that through a technicality, right? You don't just want to cross the finish line because that's what happened under safety. You want to race, you want to fight for it, you want to earn your positions. I'm sure no one on the grid is loving this right now, but you have to take what is given to you. You have to put your head down and grind. We will see some racing action here. it will be no surprise to me if Lightworks starts to put the pressure on Jorday Hum as the safety car, once the safety car is called back in.
I'm trying to remember now how many laps we have completed without a safety car. Was it 3?
3 or 4, I believe. Yeah.
I
2
think
of those just happened.
lap 4 was the start of a fresh laps, and I think we had 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, and then 8, 9, 10 were caution, open back up, 11, 12 caution.
Are we able to take a look at who has which tires right now? Looks like Sol is going back into the pits to change. Yeah, it looks like he called for inters, but the team put on wets. Alpine may be employing some Ferrari pit members there, messing up the call on the radio. It happens. Let's blame the weather. Just like everything else in today's race, let's blame the rain.
Hey, I mean, that's the best way to do it. I know I had in my very first endurance race, I hit the wall myself and then came into the pits, put on wet tires in a dry race, and then skipped fixing the damage the second time I came into the pits. So I had to box 2 times in the first 2 laps. Mistakes happen. You learn from them, hopefully, and then you move on. The nice thing, not nice thing, but with this is we are seeing more of the drivers watching the live stream because we have 3 currently that have DNF'd from the race. Antonio Lopez says he is Tono, the McLaren who most recently DNF'd out of the race.
Yeah, context clues. We may be pronouncing that wrong. It may be Tono. Not sure. But thank you for joining us for the race. Sorry you have to experience the rest of the race through our lens instead of your own. But yeah, it was a wonderful shot. I love seeing that papaya far up in the grid, but now they're both sat dry, but both sat in the garage once again. Still under safety here, lap 12 in Singapore. Formula One Division 2 racing here for Midwest eSports on Nick and Mitch. This is time for our wonderful PSA about texting and driving. Hey, don't do it. I know these aren't real cars, so we're able to log into Discord.
Whoa!
What just happened? Under caution, we had an Alpine just tank it into the wall.
I maybe saw some bumping going on, but now we have an Alpine out of the race. Welcome to the pack, a Daltonian.
What just happened? I was just completely spaced out talking about texting and driving, thinking nothing was going to happen under caution. It looks like they're restarting the race. Okay, sure. Light work is out in front of Jorday Hum as we are back under racing lap 13 from Singapore. We have some movement down in the pack as Frenchie able to pass Pingolo. Pingolo now retaking that position. We have a fight for 8th. Pingolo still holding one of those penalties. But we are racing nonetheless, folks.
We are racing indeed, going wheel to wheel. Jorday and Cynical, I believe their wheels were fully in contact, able to keep it under control. Wow.
Well, these two are playing with fate right now, but Jorday's not just going to lie down and take it here. Cynical trying to fight to keep that position as we have Slayerized in the second Aston Martin creeping up on the back of Jorday Hum, coming in on the far side. Is he going to be able to overtake him on the outside? No, Jorday able to defend against that green giant of Slayerized.
And you can see that Hightower in the Red Bull is creeping up on the rear of the Aston Martin too. Getting some interesting camera shots this week from the spectator mode in Formula 123. We always appreciate those. And here goes Slayerized around the outside of Jorday Hum. And it looks like he will easily take that position. But can he slow down in time? Ooh. Just barely before clipping that wall.
That was close. I mean, I know we don't have DRS, but that definitely looked like Slayerized had DRS. He had that much pace, that much drafting on the Haas. Was able to just slingshot past. We have contact in the chicane. The Red Bulls and the Haas are together as Lightworks sets yet another fastest lap on top of the pack. This is a rough fight between Hightower and Jorday Hum. They're still after it as they head into the straight. Jorday taking the wrong side of that interaction, dropping now into 9th place as Pingolo and Frenchie both are able to overtake that Haas. That was cheeky racing at the end of Sector 3.
At least the people in the finish line straight are getting a show. That was a battle between 2 and then 3, 4, and 5 cars. That's like watching a fight break out, and then more and more people just decide to jump in for the fun of it. But it is one of the widest sections on the track. We do have caution thrown in Sector 1. Looks like Anbu Mason
in the Alpha, unable to... Oh, it doesn't look like there's any visible damage. May have just been a spin. But wow, look at how far down Jordi Hum suffered after that interaction. Team radio from Jordi, from the Haas, saying that was brutal. Pretty sure this race is still going, but I got this lovely glitch going on. So interesting, having some technical issues. Sure, blame it on the computer, Jordi. I'm just messing with you.
No, we have seen that happen. I believe in another race where a driver was trying to reconnect. His AI was keeping him out on the track for a lap or two, and then still had the issues, so had to drop out. Looks like we do have Sui in the Alpine trying to make a pass on Frenchie in the BMW, but you can hear those tires just spinning out, trying to really, in the rain, you're trying to balance the acceleration with spinning and punching the acceleration. That's a hard thing to do when you're trying to overtake.
Yeah, this is, for lack of a better explanation, they're basically like WRC right now. They're World Rallycross racing right now with some drift, accounting for some movement. But accounting for movement there, that Red Bull able to account for it as Travis Scott sets the fastest lap. We got the fans in the chat. Let's hear it for the Red Bull, currently sitting in second place, followed by Josh Sr. nipping at his heels in third.
Yes, I don't know if we'll see if these fastest laps can claw down even more with the later fuel load. I don't think Lightwork's going to stay happy not having the fastest lap in this race as well as he goes for the sweep. Looks like we do have Hightower and Pinglo trading places. Williams and Red Bull going toe-to-toe in Sector 1.
We have seen some very interesting. It's always nerve-wracking. One, we've seen how slick this track is tonight, but also with how tight these corners are, overtaking possibilities are very limited, as we see right there. Sol able to overtake the Frenchie able to overtake the Alpine as they battle it out here in Sector 2. This is very cheeky.
Might be hard for you to see too watching my screen, but that is Sui. It looks like two eyes.
Thank you.
At least on mine, but I'm sure to you it looks like Sol. So we got Sol, we got Sui. Regardless, he is in 8th place right now. He's able to battle off Frenchie for now. See if he can start to expand that gap a little bit. It has let Haas and AlphaTauri start to close the gap on them, though.
Lap 15, we are approaching the halfway point of the Singapore Grand Prix in Division 2 racing. Lightwork still sitting atop as we have battles in the mid to rear of this pack. Gonzalez, the substitute driver, now putting another push on the Mercedes of Frenchie, unable to make that pass before it is time. Might have had some contact there as we head into the chicane. We are seeing some new fastest laps up on the scorecard. None of them, though, belonging to Lightwork.
Yeah, so it kind of went back and forth. Lightwork took it, and then Travis Scott took it back with the first 147 of the night. And then the other Aston, Slayer Eyes, also threw down a 147, just beating Travis Scott by 10 100ths of a second. 1 100th of a second.
Math is hard, kid.
It is very hard. We also saw how hard it was for Gonzalez to slam on the brakes when Frenchie stopped in front of him. But now he's trying to go on the inside for a pass, and they're going to go wheel to wheel, and we have the other, looks like the AlphaTauri, looks like a Haas from the front, trying to sneak his way through, see if they can get a double pass going on Mercedes.
Yeah, Frenchie's been showing pace, unusual why, that has been dropping right now. We do have an overtake. Demo able to overtake Frenchie now. As Demo in that AlphaTauri, like you said, now pushing for a double overtake, trying to catch back up to Gonzalez in the Haas.
I also want to check on Lightwork because in the last lap, he has pulled a 3-second gap on Travis Scott. He was just under a second ahead a lap before, so he is cooking something else up on this lap. he might be able to set the fastest time here, and by quite a bit.
Yeah, at this point, it is all about focus and retention. There it is, a 146, 482, cooking on those inters. What a great prediction. What a great call from Lightwork early on in the second caution of the evening to pull onto those inters before the rest of the pack. We saw Travis Scott having some issues there through sector 1. This is not an easy sector. That third turn hairpin is always a doozy. You bleed so much speed after that first finish line straight into these technical corners and have to rebuild it all back up again. This is not a track for the entry-level drivers whatsoever.
I want to stay on board with Lightwork and see how he sees this track with all of this rain, because he has just been chewing through it in the past few laps. I believe he's a little bit behind his fastest lap time right now, but still pulling the gap. And we have a safety car.
We have a DNF from the Haas. P. Gonzalez was able to make it up through the pack, but is now out of this race. An unfortunate loss for the Haas team. Jordan Hum sitting in 13th was originally, was at one point sitting atop the grid, but is now in the back of the pack as our 5th car retires from this race. Wow.
Well, I was, as we were watching Lightwork, just about to say we were just over halfway through the race, but hasn't felt like it because of all the safety cars. And apparently just commentators thinking things is now enough to bring the curse into reality. So we now have 5 drivers out of the race, out of the 17 that started in this one.
This is so unfortunate for these drivers. Seeing as though nobody else was affected, that may have just been a cause of, again, a little too much gas in the corner, a little bit of oversteer, snap of understeer. Something drove that Haas into a wall, making it unable to pass go once again and collect that $200, as we are now officially on the back half of the Singapore Grand Prix, a very wet Singapore Grand Prix here from Marina Bay. The Haas of Jordan Hum taking it very, very delicately through that final corner. Wonder if that is just caution or if there's something wrong with that car as well.
Might still be the glitch that he was getting in the race, because he was out of it earlier. We will see, but we do have a speeding under safety car for MMR Frenchie. Sometimes this happen, and the league stewards can look at his footage after the race and remove the penalty if it was deemed unfair. Safety car can be sometimes tricky with what the game tells you versus what race etiquette and what you would typically expect to happen.
Yeah, notes from the Haas garage. Gonzalez heading into the chicane just hit it with a little too much throttle. So once again, like we saw with Tono in the McLaren, just a bit too much juice where it wasn't needed. These chicanes are super slick. These curbs are like ice if you hit them wrong. They give you no traction, and that car is just a spinning top off to the races. Ba-doom-psh, in the worst possible way.
I just realized I'm watching our own stream on my phone. It was the little video popped up. I was watching Knuckles' onboard footage of first him not hitting the formation lap, so sitting alone in the starting grid, and then having the accident happen in front of him, which he was unfortunate enough to then clip his tire on a wreck and then get rear-ended by another car, and ultimately leading to his demise. We have now lost over just about 30% of the pack.
Yeah, that is a staggering number. These are not drivers. Do not take this as a show of their skill. This is just proof of how difficult Singapore truly is. The quote from the introduction video of this track requiring twice as much effort as one single lap of Singapore requires twice as much effort as one lap of Monaco. That was said by Lewis Hamilton, I believe, in one of the first races that they hosted in Singapore. But we're seeing that here today. Yes, it is wet, but no, you typically don't see 5 DNFs within the first half of the race. It is just that difficult of a track.
It's very tricky, and when you throw the rain on top of it, it's just even worse. I think with Monaco, the drivers have a healthy respect that you aren't going to pass anywhere, anytime on track. So just race your race. When you get to a track like Singapore, you have more room. So you're going to think about making some passes, even if it's not the safest thing to do.
Frenchie now taking their drive-through penalty as we are still under safety car here in lap 19. Has a healthy lead on Mason in the Alfa Romeo. So now is as good a time as any to take that penalty and tighten that gap towards the rear of the pack. But talking about tightening the gap, Lightwork cannot be happy sitting front and center of this race. Was just enjoying a 3-second lead in front of Travis Scott. Now that is down to under half a second. That he's going to try and work it up again, but you never want to lose that lead. It's always kind of a low blow whenever you're back under safety and everyone gets to regroup again and try one more time.
It is tough, and we did see Travis Scott's really pushing the fastest laps, keeping up and closing the gap on Lightwork. So when the safety car goes in, he might try to make a move in the first couple of turns, or at least put some more pressure on. I believe they are both on the same set of tires still, same amount of laps. They were the originals to go into the pits along with Josh Sr., so they both have 10 laps on their inters. Most of the other drivers behind them, 8 laps, 7 laps, and then 8th or 9th, 11th, and 12th fresh inters from the box. And then that's it. That's the end of the grid that's left in the race. I was trying to look down the rest to see how old the tires are. I'm like, oh, there's only 12 people out.
And that's it. Josh Sr. now sitting in third with that Mercedes. Josh has been, 13 positions made up here in 20 laps of this race. Has just been like slinky, from up to down to up to down, front to back to front to back, now back up to the front. Let's see if he can hold that up there. That will be an incredible achievement for that Mercedes, moving up 13 spots under 4 cautions at this point, with only a handful of laps under green with actual racing action.
And 13 spots is a very good jump, but when you consider there was only 17 racers in the race, he's moved up, I believe, from 16th, so second last, to third place. And he is on the same tires as the leaders, so it's not like he was able to fully play out a pit strategy, or he was out on fresher tires than the rest of the pack. He has made some significant jumps through this race, and that's what happens when you have 4 or 5 safety cars.
I believe
I think this is 5.
Oh yeah, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
It's just insane at this point. Wonder how all the other divisions are faring. I'm sure it is a similar story across the board. Difficult track partnered with the most difficult driving conditions always leads to a bad time. But we are making the best of it. Nonetheless, happy to be here in Division 2 watching the action. Hopefully we get to call another race. I'm not sure what our schedule looks like for the back half of the season here, but I would love to call another race under better conditions to actually see these drivers open it up and let it rip.
I believe we are covering Division 2 next week in Japan as well, so we will be back for that race. If this one is wrapped up by then, we do only have 7 hours left until the real F1 practice one takes place in Singapore, so you might as well stay up at this point. That'll be kicking off at 5:30 a.m. Eastern.
Good.
I might catch practice too at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll see.
Good. So you're telling me we get to call Division 2 in Japan, a track notorious for all of their wet weather.
We also just got a comment from Valentine saying wet Singapore is never a fun time. I know he has watched the Division 1 races. Is that one wrapped up already? Probably could have. We are now out of safety car. It looks like back into racing action.
Here we go once again. Like we said, those top 3 are within a second of one another. We'll see if Lightwork. Hey, thanks, Joe, for subscribing.
You didn't hear the noise, Nick, too, but it did have the F1 radio alert sound playing in my headset and on the stream. I hope everyone heard that. So excited to have that in there.
Shout out to Mitch on the back end making this stream what it is. Thank you very much for all the time and effort that you put into it. And thank you very much to the commissioner, Pork Chops, and all of the other ones at MidWest eSports for putting together these racing leagues. As we see Travis Scott closing that gap, now under half a second behind Lightwork, trying to keep up with the Aston Martin as best he can on those inters. It's going to be a difficult battle. It's a tall order, but if anyone is up for it, it is the chat favorite Travis Scott's nipping at the heels of the pole sitter.
Looks like he's rocking, I think, one of the special liveries from Red Bull too. Definitely looks pretty from up top. We're also hearing division lap as 3 laps to go with the top 3 of Scarenzi, Race Day, and Lancy. Be excited to go back and watch all the other races after and see how everyone has been handling the rain in Singapore.
Well, just as we were singing the praises of the Red Bull, and while we were reviewing the check-in on Division 1, we had a huge oversteer by Travis Scott, bleeding over a 1.5 seconds of pace, getting closer to Josh Sr. now, giving him a chance to try for second, but widening that gap between Lightwork and the rest of the pack. Lightwork, as it stands, 10 laps away from his 4th win in a row, setting yet another fastest lap with a 1:44.718. The Aston Martin is on a mission from God. Josh Sr. following suit, trying to catch up to that Red Bull. Might be able to make something happen after these series of corners as we head into another straight. Is he able to? No, not yet. The Red Bull will continue to lead in second place.
Lightwork is a full 1.5 seconds up on right now. Something else, it looks like it's still having some drops of rain come down, but we've been out on this track so long, it might dry up before the race ends. They said there was a small chance. I think the chance is bigger now that we have spent a lot of time under safety car.
Yeah, you can see the tire marks there. Wow, incredible physics. But you're able to see the dry marks of Travis Scott ahead of Josh here, trying to keep it within those to get as much traction as possible. I mean, that is phenomenal that we are at a day and age where a video game can show that much level of detail in the physics as well as visually. Bit of squirreliness there from the Alpine of Sui, as he is trying to stave off an overtake from the other Aston Martin, Slayerized, who is another racer today who has just been trying to push his way through the pack and has been relatively successful.
Yes, and watch for those leaders to maybe go into the pits. We saw that in real life. It played a huge factor in Belgium, where even if the track is still mostly wet, the racing line can be dry enough that you can put on soft tires and slicks. The danger is if you happen to go off by a hair, it could be game over. If one of those tires dips into a wet spot of the track while you're accelerating or braking, you may go 360 into a wall.
Yeah, we saw that a few races ago in actual Formula One racing, where the drivers were opting for slicks, but the minute that they jumped off of that line, it was game over. I believe it was Austria. Don't quote me on that. Lightwork setting yet another fastest lap, chomping those down second by second. This track is definitely drying out. You can see with the improved times across the board, but more present up front with Lightwork now setting a 1:43 as the fastest lap. That is quite a pace for the rest of the pack to try and achieve. Is Demo still on those hards, or did Demo switch back to inters under caution? Wow.
We've had a couple changes.
Excuse me, what?
I just saw DRS wasn't able to, so now we are going to get DRS back in the race with 8 laps to go. And our first set of drivers have thrown on some softs and medium tires. They're the drivers down in 10th, 11th, and 12th, but that could change. We'll see how they're faring out there on the lap. Let's check Demo, compare his lap time up top, see if he's improving at all.
Let's get to work, folks. It's time to race. 14 laps on the inters for the front half of the pack. Not sure if the backpack leaders on those softs and mediums are going to be able to get up for a competing time, but it will be very interesting to see who takes a fastest lap. And there we go, Lightwork deciding to dump into the pits, may be opting for slicks. Here we see the rest of the pack noticing that Lightwork has done the same. They are following suit. It is time for slicks in Singapore. We are going to the race here with under 10 laps to go. this could be yet another photo finish. Lightwork opting for the mediums, trying to get out there behind Jordan Hum, able to calmly place in third, behind two of the remaining inters, as the rest of the pack looks like they are opting for softs.
Doesn't. Lightwork's putting on some medium tires. Jordan Hum, interestingly, staying out on the track. Going to see maybe if he could take advantage of everyone starting to slow down for the pits, if he could stay out on his flyer, pit on the next lap, and then put on some soft tires and maybe come out in front. We'll see if that works out for him. Otherwise, we do have the drivers that pitted early out in front, and that's going to cause a significant gap where we'll have to see if Lightwork and crew can catch up.
And we do have a completed race in Division 1, if anyone is following those standings. Pole sitter race day completing yet another podium finish, followed by Scarenzi and Lancy. So some of the big hitters there in Division 1 still proving that they are the ones sitting on top.
And that sounds like race day took the lead at the very end. Scarenzi was leading with just 3 laps to go. So some drama happening at the very end in Division 1. Expect we might see some here too, though. MMR Hightower with the biggest jump out of anyone. He has gone up 13 positions so far in this race.
Yeah, that is just an incredible race. You know, I would love to see the Red Bull atop the podium today, just for all of those overtakes. Josh Sr. can get up there as well. That would just be unheard of with an impressive 11 place overtake. We now see Hightower dipping down, opting for the slicks. I believe those were softs. We'll have to wait and see for another shot. But Lightwork now in second place behind Jordan, still with those inters on, only 4 seconds behind and closing.
I wonder if he's at this point just going to stay out on inters and see if he can defend well enough to not lose too many positions. When he's gained 13, he might just be thinking, I can hold long enough to get a podium or finish in a great position. If he goes into the pits now, he's going to drop down close to the end of the pack.
All right, so 6 laps to go, and we were having issues with the weather, but now those slick tires are proving difficult to stay within track limits as we have multiple drivers pushing off grid, much like Hightower right there, receiving a penalty for multiple warnings, cutting track and just, unable to keep it between the white lines. They can't color within the lines. They're going to get called out for it. These slick tires not doing them any favors on an ice-cold track. As you see, even Lightwork is struggling to make it through those corners in Sector 2, overtaking Jordan Hum and reclaiming first as the pole sitter started this race, qualified first, and is now once again in first. What a strategic race from Lightwork. He absolutely knows what he is doing and what needs to be done to ensure the highest finishing position possible. You thought that he might have been out of it, coming back in after pit in 6th, but this man has a crystal ball. He is reading the tea leaves, and he is coming out on top. Lightwork yet again. Look at that, a 1:38 now as the fastest lap. Cynical taking it from Travis Scott, who took it from Lightwork. These cars are humming. We are finally off to the races, and we're under 5 laps to go.
And Cynical making the move up into 4th position with that too. And now Travis Scott's overtaking Jordan Hum. So now the best he's holding on is 3rd place, holding just 2 seconds over MMR Cynical, but this gap is closing super quick. This is where the wet tires, the inter tires, just will not hold up, and with DRS, there's barely a chance for him. We'll see how he slips, but we also have Slayerized overtaking Hightower down in 6th and 7th.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on 5th and 4th as they are both pushing one another. And they're definitely, it's looking like they are going to be overtaking Jordan Hum eventually. At this point, the Haas, the final remaining Haas in today's race, should be considering pitting to just maintain middle of the pack placement, but it may be too late. He may just have to eat his Cheerios here and settle for whatever he is left with, as we see both of these cars making quick work of the Haas, unfortunately, on the wrong tires for the back end of this race.
It is tough to keep up. In this section of the track, there's 2 back-to-back straights, or as close to a straight as you're going to get in Singapore, where you have enough room to overtake and he's unable to defend. He did do well throughout the chicanes trying to block some of those cars. And that'll be up to Slayerize and Hightower to go past him. Travis Scott's taking the new fastest lap with a 1:37.568. We're not done ticking down the time yet.
No,
and as I say, finish up, Slayerize 1:36.
We are not finished at all. Travis Scott also within DRS of Lightwork, able to close it under half a second. He may be able to put some pressure on our first place sitter. With 4 laps to go, Travis Scott is not going quietly. He's going to start pushing. There we go. We're seeing some aggressive driving from the Red Bull in the latter half of the race.
I'm interested to see what Lightwork's strategy was going on medium tires. There were 7 or 8 laps left, which is about the lifetime of those softs before you start to lose them. However, with Travi on softs and Lightwork on mediums, and Travi having DRS, it's going to be a little bit of a battle. I'm not saying Lightwork can't do it. He's shown what he can do on the track when the gap starts to close on him. Yeah, but we do still have 4 laps left.
It seems like the smart move right now for Lightwork is to, like you said, try and wear those softs down as much as possible. Defend as hard as you can. Make Travi make the moves, make the jukes, hit the brakes, hit the gas, do whatever he can to try and claw past you, and in doing so, torch his tires so that he can't get the traction. He can't keep the speed that he has been showing with all of these fastest laps. Travi is on a downward trending slope right now as Lightwork is taking the harder endurance, but is able to defend his position easier. He's able to take those corners and you know, kind of beat that car up a little more than Travi is. He is on borrowed time. Cynical, I believe, just set fastest lap. I missed that notification. Looking down on the grid again, Jordy Hum now sitting in 9th place, a fall from grace for the Haas on Inters. An unfortunate turn of events for that team today.
That's here we go. One.
He can't get past him.
Cynical's fastest lap, by the way, is like a 1.5 seconds over. Well, Slayerized and the other Aston Martin's pretty close, but at least on the leaders, it's a significant difference.
So at this point, Cynical is too far behind Travi to engage DRS, but
closing.
He's definitely closing. Yeah, he may be able to overtake him again if Travi continues to push and torch those tires. Cynical may be able to take an opportunity. Now he is under DRS as Travi is losing it. We may be seeing a fight for second here in the final 3 laps of the race.
This is, much like last week, going to come down to the very end of the race. At least for these podium positions, who's going to shake out in first, second, and third. Lightwork pulling almost enough away to get rid of the DRS. It's going to depend on where the marker is, and they just crossed the marker, so I believe both second and third will have DRS coming through the final straight, heading into the speed track. Cynical with a 1:34. Josh Senior with a 1:34.
As we're focused on top of the grid, another overtake in the back part. Anbu Mason's Alfa Romeo taking over the Haas, as it is now Demo's turn to try and do something with an 8-second interval between him and the Haas in 10th. It looks like Jordan may have cemented his position back in 10th. But the fight is definitely up top here as we have Cynical still now under half a second behind Travi. Both drivers on soft tires, both drivers under DRS engagement. Let's see what they can do. Lightwork is all but secured this win as long as he is able to keep it between the lines and keep it fast. He is going to be looking at his 4th in a row. Cynical still trying to catch up to Travi, just unable to make it happen.
I'm surprised you said that because we have seen comments like that ruin the end of a race for certain drivers. Cynical is starting to close in on Travis Scott, holding about a half second of a difference, but he does have 2 laps left. He can be kind of careful and pick and choose when he wants to make his final attack, because you're really going to have just 2 more chances to make a good move in this race.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we didn't see Cynical hit it hammered down right now for the back half. from now until the checkered flag. There we go. We had Lightwork setting fastest, Cynical now setting fastest. Once again, we head into turns 1 through 3. These technical chicanes bleeding all of that power, hitting yet another straight after this. He is under 4/10 of a second. Is he going to be able to claim DRS and overtake Travis Scott here in the second to last lap of the race? No. He is on pace. He is absolutely flying, but for some reason, this Red Bull is just, he has his number, almost pushing him off the track there as they go double wide into the 90. And there he goes. Cynical takes second.
I was going to say, he just sneaks on the inside. It's hard in this track with DRS because you don't have enough runway to get up into 8th gear and take full advantage of that extra speed at the top. You're getting a bit more acceleration, but until you max out speed in the car, you're not getting a significant difference. But he is able to just squeak by. Now it's going to be Travis Scott's turn to fight in the final half of this lap and one more lap to go in the race. We also have Slayer Eyes in the Aston Martin creeping up on Josh Sr. in 4th.
We also had an overtake for 7th. Pingaloo taking the 7th spot from the Alpine of Sui. Sorry.
Tough one for you. And now look at this. Look at the position changes going into the final lap. Lightwork and Cynical in the same spots they qualified. Travis Scott moving up 1. Josh Sr. moving up 12. And then Slayer Eyes moving up 2. So all of those big moves in the race have started to come down. Frenchie now just getting a penalty for a severe collision with Jordan Hum in the race. Looks like they got it cleared up enough to maybe get rid of that caution flag. But we do have some big gaps now. I think they're a little too far to close at this point in the race.
We are now on the final lap. Let's take it back up to our pole sitter, Lightwork, qualifying in 1st. And it looks like he's going to finish 1st. 7 laps on his medium tires right now, putting on yet another clinic, able to, once again, read the tea leaves, consult with the crystal ball, and figure out where this weather was going to be. It was a godsend almost for the top of the pack to have all of those cautions, prolonging today's race enough so that they could dry out. We have Travi going wide. Bit of jitter there from the game, but Travi going wide on this final push here. As we head into Sector 3, Lightwork just has one final sector before he waves his 4th checkered flag in a row from Singapore in week 11 of racing here in the 2023 season.
I'm pretty sure I just saw him with a 2-second split off of his record lap time. He might just smoke the fastest lap here at the end. 132. It was a 134 before that lap.
Fastest lap to close it out. Lightwork taking his 4th podium in a row, raising gold once again from Marina Bay in Singapore. What an interesting race for Division 2 today. With all of the rain, with all of the issues, the cautions, we had 5 drivers. 30% of today's grid DNF'd before the checkered flag, as we see everyone now crossing the line. Demos next up, but that podium, Lightwork, Cynical, and Josh Sr., who absolutely deserves that podium spot, making up 12 positions, starting in 16th, ending in 3rd. What a drive for the Mercedes. If no one else, he has to be the driver of the day.
This is a race where everyone who made it through survived and got some great points for their teams. Look at Aston Martin in 1st and 4th, Williams in 2nd and 8th, and Red Bull in 5th and 6th. Now, Aston Martin was in 5th in the Constructors, Red Bull was in 7th, and Williams was in 9th. That's going to be huge jumps for those teams, being able to get both drivers finishing in great positions with only 12 drivers out there.
This season is far from over. With 4 races remaining, it is anyone's guess who will join these teams atop the podium. As we look ahead, next week will take us to Japan, but it is time to celebrate for today's drivers. Again, these are not the final standings. There will be steward reviews following today's race. If any drivers wish to submit reports of inaction on the grid, we may be seeing different setters, different positioning at the start of next week's race. But since we will be with you once again in Division 2 for Japan, we will be sure to cover those changes. We'll take a look at the grid once the guys have had their swigs of their drinks, their apple juice here. And we will see what this rainy day in the jungle brought. NFS Lightwork taking it once again, starting first and ending first, followed by Cynical in the Williams, Josh in the Mercedes, Slayerized in the other Aston.
That was a heck of a race to survive through. Congrats to all the drivers and all the people who watched that one. Who doesn't love Singapore after that one? I mean, everyone talked about 2017, and we recreated that pretty closely in the start of this race. It'll be fun to watch a lot of the onboards from all of the incidents that happened throughout.
Yes, absolutely. And once again, thank you to everyone who joined us live for today's race. Thank you to Bacon for keeping us up to date on the Division 1 action. Thank you to executive producer Bob, my dad, for keeping us up with all of our audio leveling, and Gonzalo Sanchez and all of the rest of you who were chiming in and making this a fun race to watch. We love covering these races, but it is not the only thing that we do here on Nick and Mitch. Please join us every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern for our Riders Republic series. It's an extreme sports game that we cover in a weekly vlog series by Ubisoft. Skateboards, snowboards, skiing, BMX, soon to be, did I say skateboards? Skateboards are coming at the end of this month. It is a lot of fun over there. A lot of F1 drivers enjoy the action of extreme sports and vice versa. Both of these two different communities really converge, and the Venn diagrams overlap in a lot of different spots. So join us over there for our weekly episodes, along with our eSport or X Games styled eSports competitions returning in this in the coming months. But once again, we will be with Division 2 for the race at Suzuka next week, same place, same time, Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern for MidWest eSports Formula 1 Division 2 racing.
That one is going to be fun. And I also want to give a thank you to all of our members of our channel. You too can join, become a member down below, and it helps support us. We put it all back into the content we make. Special thanks to our executive producers, Bone Crusher 2D, Coach 34, and my mom, co-producers Killavepa and Captain Snowbeard, and our fans and Fans Plus.
Yes, if you would like to donate a couple bucks, you can donate them in the stream, but you can also subscribe monthly to just help support the channel. Like Mitch said, all of that money goes back in for all of the graphics that you see on the screen, all of the transitions, that F1 subscriber call that we had, that awesome radio call that was just added last week. We love doing this for the fans, for racing and gaming fans alike. So please, if you are able to, if you are willing to, you throw a couple bucks our way so that we can give you a better product on the back end. That is going to do it for today's broadcast. Please give it a watch back. The stream will live right here on Nick and Mitch, and we'll be back same place, same time next week for Division 2 action in MidWest eSports Formula 1 racing from Japan. I'm Nick.
And I'm Mitch.
And we'll see yins in Japan.